to our meeting tonight on PR and the healthcare industry. Hope you've all had a good day so far. So first, we'll start with introductions of our e-board. My name is Taylor Williams, and I am the chapter president.
Hi, I'm Juliet Stance, and I am the faculty advisor. Having computer problems today, so I'm on my phone.
Hello, I'm Sabrina Fitch-Minton, VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. You're welcome to take a look at our new channel on Slack.
I am Niffer Honeycutt, and I am the VP of Digital.
I'm Melania Tochko, and I'm the VP of Professional Development.
I'm Christina Milich. I'm the VP of Membership.
I'm Holly Genvy. I'm the VP of Events.
And Pavitra is our VP of Social.
Hi everyone, I'm Giselle and I'm the VP of Communication.
So up first, we'd like to officially tell all of you guys that it is now you can now officially go on to the national website and pay dues to be dues paying members of DePaul PRSSA. It comes with all kinds of awesome benefits like scholarships, mentorship opportunities, free or reduced entrance fees to like district conferences and other conferences, things like mentorship panels and writing panels and different things like that that PRSSA and PRSA National hosts. And it's just a really awesome opportunity. So for more information or to join, you can go on to, well, Twitter currently to click on our link tree to do that. I'm not sure if Instagram and Facebook are back up yet, but you can definitely go into our Twitter and click on the link tree to go to sign up to join. It's $60 annually and it goes for the whole year. So October 2021 to October 2022. And that's no matter when you sign up. So signing up in October is ideal. Like I said before, all of these perks are listed and you can see them all on the membership benefits. And if you have any questions, you can email me or Juliet. And, we really want to make sure, finances are not a problem for anybody. Everybody should be able to join and everybody should be able to get all of the benefits out of being a PRSSA dues paying member. And so we do have dueserships or scholarships for dues available for anybody who may need them. And if you're interested, you can definitely email Juliet at that email listed on the screen, jstans@DePaul.
We have a blog. It's called the Press. If you would like to contribute to the blog or if you want to learn more about it, you can email me. My email address is right there. If you want to check it out, there's the link. But yeah, it's pretty much, it's PR related. If you want to write for it, you can write about anything you like. It can be like a meeting recap. It can be something that you're interested in the field of PR. It can be pretty much anything. So just email me and I'll tell you more.
All right, and now I have 2 slides worth of professional development opportunities to go through because October and the following months are pretty busy. So the first opportunity that I'd like to let everybody know about is that the PRSSA ethics competition launched this past week on Monday. Questions and submissions are due by December 3rd, 2021. And the case is about the ethical use of interns. If you look on their website, which I will send in the Slack after I'm done going through everything, along with the rest of the opportunities, it's about working from the perspective of an account executive who is working with an intern that's unpaid, that doesn't have much experience besides like busy work that's usually done around the office, like clerical work, and assigning them a task that they might not necessarily be able to do and whether or not you should be able to do that. And this is a competition that you can enter in by yourself. I think that entries are judged individually. So you're not going to be assigned to a team or anything. And this is just something that you can do in preparation for Bateman if you anticipate taking part in that in future years, or if you just want that experience. If you want to take part in another case competition, the Washington Media Scholars Foundation case competition launched this past week on Friday on October 1st. Their website is kind of down right now, so I can't see exactly what the prompt for this year is, but you can just email them. Their email is plastered all over their website if you'd like to find out more. And it's a great way for students interested in public policy to gain experience. And this competition, if you enter as like a single entrant, you'll be matched with somebody else or a group of other students that would be able to take part in a team with you. And then the 4A's, which is, let me remember what this acronym stands for. The American Association of Advertising Agencies has their multicultural advertising internship program for 2022 open. The student application is live, and the deadline to apply is Friday, November 12th, and it's a great opportunity for students of color. Now, if we go to the next slide, there is another opportunity for students of color, the Michelle Flowers Diversity Fellowship Program. It's open to juniors and seniors who who identify as people of color, who are looking for an internship connection and a mentor to be assigned to. So if you'd like to apply to any of those opportunities, I will send out links to those in the Slack very soon.
You can also connect with us through opportunities or just to chat on our Slack channel. You can put your phones up to the QR code to scan and join, and you can connect with us in any way possible.
And then here is just a calendar of the other upcoming events we have for this quarter for our meeting. So far, we have another meeting in a couple of weeks on the 25th about traveling in PR, and then on November 8th about event planning in PR, again on Monday nights at 6 o'clock.
So now it's time to kick it off for our panel. We have a great lineup for us tonight, and they will be explaining all about healthcare and PR and what they do at their jobs and how people like you can enter the industry. So we will be having Alyssa Kuchiunas, who is an account manager at Real Chemistry, Julie Ferguson, who is a healthcare PR consultant, owner and founder of JFPR Media Group, and Jamie Poet, who is a senior account executive at Health of Edelman. So welcome everybody. So yeah, who would like to present first?
I'll go first.
Awesome.
Okay, let me share my screen. Cool. So, yep. Hey guys, my name again is Alyssa Kuchiunas, and I actually, as of Friday, I'm a senior account manager at Real Chemistry, which is formerly W2O Group. We recently had a rebrand earlier this year. Same company, just new name, new look and feel and everything. So you guys may be more familiar with W2O. But yeah, so just to tell you a little bit about Real Chemistry, we are extremely data-driven. Analytics and insights really does power every facet of our organization. We use it for all of our strategies. It really does help tell us the who, where, what, and why of really any of our clients and all that we do. We also live in digital. So we start with digital because it's where society learns, engages, and transacts. And this is how we all live, as we all know from today's shutdown or bug of Facebook. We are made up of healthcare gurus. It is who we are. And it's honestly one of my favorite parts about Real Chemistry, just because everyone who does work here is so into healthcare. You really get to kind of nerd out on your accounts and your work and just be surrounded by people who are just as passionate as you are about healthcare, which is something I don't think you really get to experience at a lot of places. Creative engagement. We are always looking for solutions that make the most sense and have the potential to surprise and delight our clients. And then diverse and inclusive. So I have another slide on this later on in the presentation, but Real Chemistry really is committed to building diverse teams and cultivating an inclusive culture that fuels innovation and improved outcomes. So Real Chemistry is a global company. While the majority of our offices are in the US, we also have a couple core Real Chemistry offices out in the Europe and UK region. Our company has over 1,600 professionals. We have over 150 analysts and data scientists. We have a scientific strategy team made up of over 60 PhDs, MDs, and PharmDs that really help us translate the science and all the crazy data that we work with on a daily basis, which is really awesome because I would not understand most of it without the help of these people. Our teams speak more than 20 different languages, and then we have over 60 hand-selected market partners. And we are a leading healthcare agency, so Real Chemistry is really proud of its awards that it's received from MMM, Provoke, PR Week, and something really cool during the pandemic. In 2020, our revenue was doubled or at a 50% growth, totaling $350 million. So not a lot of companies got to say that during the pandemic. So we really are just a growing company. And the pandemic also, I think, just made a lot of companies realize the importance of communications and the importance of having a PR agency to support their work, which is great that we got to benefit from that too. And then speaking of clients, this is just a quick snapshot of the types of clients that Real Chemistry has. So pharma is really our bread and butter. So, clients like AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Novartis, Takeda, health tech companies, medical device, biotech, consumer health like Walgreens and Estee Lauder, Bayer, and payer providers. So United Healthcare, CVS Health, City of Hope. There's really an account for everybody, no matter your interest. And Real Chemistry really does care about what you want to work on. And you can always, in the interview process or while you're at the company, if, I've been here 2 years, if I wanted to kind of expand my roles and explore some other options, they really allow you to do that because of the wide range of clients we have, which is really cool. And I've gotten to learn a lot about all these other companies that I'd never heard anything about before coming to Real Chemistry. And then our culture, I think when I talk to pretty much anybody that asks about Real Chemistry, they wonder what the culture is like. And I can't rave about it more, honestly. They care so much about cultivating a really solid culture, whether it's among your teams, whether it's within your offices or as a company as a whole. So there's always happy hours, offsites. They have a coaching staff if you are going through a transition or just need someone to talk to through a problem you're dealing with at work. They are just an email away and you could set up a call with them at any time, really, which is really awesome. And then recently, throughout the pandemic, they started a town hall series where they were inviting a lot of really awesome speakers, like you see Katie Kirk here and Marcia Windross. We have Trevor Noah was our speaker at our Christmas party. So it's just a really, really cool place outside of work and just to connect, to grow with people, to grow your own career, which I think is really unique to Real Chemistry too. And then as mentioned earlier, they really are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is something I know is really becoming top of mind for a lot of people entering the workforce, already in the workforce, which I really love that Real Chemistry is prioritizing this. So, there's obviously only 20% of leadership roles at biopharma firms are held by women. 1 in 10 LGBTQ workers have left a job because the environment was not accepting, and multicultural employees are underrepresented and face a double bias. And these are all things that Real Chemistry is truly committing to combating, whether it's, elevating the underserved, understanding and overcoming these biases, and just kind of being honest with yourself if you have these, and ways to address those internally as a team, as a company as a whole, building a community, and then of course just making the world a healthier place for all, which is one of our key taglines at Real Chemistry. And then another cool part of the culture is the business resource groups. So we have, and these are pre-brand shifts, so they still say W2O group, but we have ones dedicated to supporting families and working parents, Fusion and focusing on the inclusion of multicultural employees, evolve for just kind of creating a community of peers who are sharing similar professional milestones or situations. Women of W2O, which is a women group that aims to level the playing field and provide resources and networking opportunities. And then W2O Out, which focuses on fostering a culture of inclusivity and support for LGBTQ individuals and allies. So a lot of really cool opportunities to get involved with at the company as well. And then just a little bit about my role. So as a senior account manager or a SAM on the team, these are just 5 really core areas that you're focused on leading and being involved with. So being on the account management team, just generally project and team management, and being really independent in managing projects and, you know, thinking ahead and anticipating challenges, managing the resources and budgets, and working with our cross-functional teams. So at Real Chemistry, we have dedicated analytics teams, paid media, earned media, social media, scientific strategy, value and access. Like, we have so many different teams, so you really are kind of that connecting point. Overseeing all the financials. So I thought in college that I would not have to do math because thought PR had nothing to do with it. I was wrong, and I learned that the hard way. So you really take hold of the financials, the budgets, the developing projections, reviewing reports and trackers. So very involved there. Client leadership. So really, you get to have a lot of face-to-face with the clients. You have to be comfortable working with them, addressing any last-minute asks, questions, whatever, and just kind of really honing on your strategic thinking there. Really critically thinking, you know, having the ability to develop solutions to client needs and problems, and collaborating internally, identifying the market trends and data, and just understanding the objectives and strategies as a whole. And then obviously healthcare knowledge, really understanding those complex technical terms, clinical trials, and studies pertaining to a brand or your account. I specifically support 100% Takeda Oncology, which is just a large global pharmaceutical company. I work on a approved multiple myeloma drug, and then our pipeline drugs, so early stage investigational treatments that aren't approved yet anywhere in the world, and then corporate work, so a lot of thought leadership stuff there. And then last slide, I promise. These is just like what we do as an agency to support Takeda. So quick snapshot, you know, we support their presence at medical meetings, which is really, really important to the pharmaceutical industry, where they're sharing a lot of data and exciting moments for the company. Supporting data and regulatory milestones. So when they're gearing up for an FDA approval, just announcing data and if it met its endpoint, if it didn't meet its endpoint, which is something we recently had to go through, and everything in between there. Disease awareness, so developing fact sheets and infographics, developing bylines that are really just about the disease and generating awareness among both patients, physicians, investors, whoever. And then thought leadership. So we write articles that are then authored by executives at the company. We're always seeking out opportunities for them to speak at events and conferences, and really just increase like Takeda's awareness among the industry and position them as like a leader and a go-to. And then just another example here was a podcast that we got for the president of Takeda to speak on about just like her role as the president and how to manage the dynamics of oncology. So we do a lot besides this, but these are like a lot of what we do each year and just on the day-to-day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Jamie or Julie, who would like to go next?
I can go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Julie, go ahead.
Thank you, Alyssa, for taking one for the team and going first.
No problem.
All right, I'll share my screen as well. Okay, can everyone see this? Okay, good. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Ferguson. I'm also an adjunct professor at DePaul University, and I teach currently media relations, as well as PR 255. So I recognize some of my students. I also have some students that are joining for extra credit today as well. So it's great to see them. So I have been working in healthcare communications for 20 years. I started my career in-house at Abbott, which now everyone in the world knows the name Abbott, thanks to COVID-19. But I started my career right after I graduated. I interned at the American Medical Association and was able to get that healthcare experience with working on the policy front. And to be honest, I really didn't want to go into healthcare. I wanted to go into event planning or fashion or something cool. So I fell into it accidentally. And then when I graduated after 9/11, there weren't a lot of jobs, but there were in healthcare. And I will just reiterate what Alyssa said, that right now, healthcare and pretty much through the last 20 years of my career has always been booming. And now even more than ever, people really understand what could happen and people take their health for granted. And so it's very important for communicators to get the right message out there, given sort of the complex political environment we're in. And then also, I just think people just even take for granted that the FDA approves medications and that there are therapies available when you get sick. So it's been an incredible challenge. I started my career after college in-house, which is unusual. Most people do start in an agency, but I was fortunate enough to get a job as a communication specialist at Abbott and work on their corporate media relations team. And then I also worked in their pharmaceutical business, working on a drug called Humira, as well as in the HIV virology space. And then I also worked in the nutrition space on Similac. And then I left Abbott when I was 30 to go to Ketchum, which is a global PR agency. And I also worked on Takeda there and Cleveland Clinic, which is a major hospital. I moved to New York. I had a great time there, stayed on the East Coast, and actually worked at Bristol Myers Squibb, and then came back and worked at Hospira, which was then acquired by Pfizer. And then I was let go in a massive layoff at Pfizer and decided to teach at DePaul and also go into freelance consulting, which is great because I am able to kind of be that jack of all trades. I have a number of small biotech clients as well as bigger healthcare clients. And what's interesting is I kind of work for myself and create my own hours, which is great. And it gives me the flexibility to teach as well. And I can work as much or as little as possible. I'm pretty busy though. So I'm always looking for interns and usually have an intern from one of my classes after they're not a student of mine. So it's been great to kind of get that perspective. And for me, I partner with either companies as a contractor, or I partner with other agencies like the one that Alyssa's at. I've partnered in the past with W2O Group. So sometimes if someone goes on a maternity leave or is out sick, or if they need someone just for 6 months or something like that, I will do a temporary assignment and fill in. And so that's really what I like about freelancing, because I can kind of feel like I'm part of the team. I'm not always on an island. So I wanted to share with you guys just briefly some interesting things that have gone on for me in the last year. The news cycle has really been all focused on COVID-19, which has made it difficult if you are not talking about something related to COVID-19 to get news coverage. Healthcare has become the main news story, and it's a good thing and a bad thing because more people are paying attention than ever before. Most people did not even know what an emergency use authorization, an EUA, was, and now people talk about it. And it's funny to those of us that have always worked on these types of announcements, that now when you see something like the FDA AdCom approving the booster vaccine for Pfizer, the whole world talks about it. And the rest of us that have been geeking out on this science and FDA approvals for years, it's pretty much all we've talked about before. So I really like that the rest of the world is kind of aware now of what the FDA approval process is. And so I just wanted to share a couple just really quick, because I know we don't have that much time, but I just wanted to quickly talk through some of the things that I've been doing to get media coverage for some of these clients. So I partnered with another agency called The Sway Effect on a client for that's basically a competitor of Abbott's called Becton Dickinson. And we were pulled in thinking at the beginning of 2020 that we were just going to establish their reputation, get the name out there. They had never done proactive media. And then sure enough, we were one of the only companies making a COVID-19 diagnostic test. And so we had a big opportunity for a company that had been really sleepy in the past from a media standpoint to really get out there in the story. And so we did a lot of media relations as far as their CEO, Tom Poland. We got media trained, and then we sent a number of press releases out regarding partnerships on diagnostic tests that were being rapidly approved real time. There was also some issues with the accuracy of these tests and sort of clarifying the message there. We also worked with the White House at the time to develop a statement in terms of what the test was going to be in terms of diagnostics. And so it was really exciting to kind of have a lot of coverage for a company that had not really been in the main sphere before. And so these are just some examples. We also talked about supply shortages, and once a vaccine was approved, Becton Dickinson not only makes diagnostic tests, but they also make a lot of the supplies and needles that are needed for the vaccine. And so it was really interesting when we talk about business acumen and how important it is to understand the business. What was really key for the public and for us to understand is that just because a vaccine's approved doesn't mean there's actually the supplies to vaccinate the entire world, and how that needed to be revved up. So it was a really unique opportunity for us to tell that story as well. So we talked about the needle shortage and the syringe order, and basically how do you get everyone vaccinated. And Bruce Jepson actually wrote this story. Bruce is an old reporter from the Chicago Tribune. He kind of has a crotchety reputation, but it's funny because he was the first healthcare beat reporter I ever met when I was an intern at the American Medical Association. So it just shows a lot of these healthcare beat reporters spend their entire careers in healthcare. And so it's obviously good to build relationships with them. But he was the one that did the feature story on the supply shortage and how Becton Dickinson was helping them. And then this is also just a clip that we had on basically the CEO, who's pictured right here, Tom Poland of Becton Dickinson, participated in one of the very infamous White House briefings. And so we were able to coordinate that to get more exposure for the company. So anyway, we were able to get a lot of coverage. And so I'm also here to talk about Biofluidica, which is another biotech company that I work for. And they also were awarded NIH grant funding. And we sent out a press release and got some trade coverage on that as well. So it just shows that even the smallest companies that are unheard of are able to get coverage in this environment if it does pertain to COVID-19. And lastly, one of my other clients that was actually called Express Spa Group used to be a nail salon in airports, which was always a really cool idea, but no one ever had time to actually make an appointment out of the airport. They were losing sales, and they actually used their airport space to convert their spas into express check testing facilities. And so that's been a really cool experience to kind of see the pivot during the pandemic and really leveraging sort of the travel concerns that exist. And so Express Spa turned into Express Check, which we were partnering with Becton Dickinson and Abbott for rapid tests on site at airports. And now the brand is going into a brand called Treat, which will be a health and wellness brand. So there's an opportunity to showcase that as the company continues to pivot and make the travel experience, which we all know has been a little tumultuous lately, more pleasant. So I just attached some of those clips and press coverage on some of those. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last year, and wanted to just give you kind of an overview of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you for the presentation. Jamie, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Let me see if this will let me share my screen. Oh, I work on Teams now, and I feel like it's really ruined what I can do on Zoom. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Good. Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to preface with my PowerPoints are a little less intricate. The client that I do work on is very careful about what we can share. So I don't have much. I'm going to do more talking than I am showing on screen, just as a heads up. But first, we just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what I do and kind of how I got to Edelman. So I took a little bit of a different step. My background, my undergrad is in kinesiology. And so it's the study of movement, and I really wanted to do occupational therapy, physical therapy with it. I had always been very interested in the healthcare field, and then decided I really don't want to work bedside manner. I more want to be on the business PR type of work. And so I actually applied to grad school at DePaul for PR and advertising, and then ended up with interning for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. So they are a hospital based out of Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of commercials about it, but St. Jude is where no family pays a bill for travel, treatment, housing, or food. And it's the top children's cancer hospital, but they also treat other life-threatening illnesses like sickle cell disease and very rare genetic disorders. So they just cured bubble boy disease last year, things like that. And I was doing more event planning there, doing some PR locally, trying to make a Memphis hospital local in Chicago and gain donors, things like that, but really wanted to expand my healthcare knowledge and do a little more and really understand the PR field. So I applied to a role at Edelman on their healthcare team, and I wanted to stay within the healthcare realm because I am someone that really wants to do something bigger than myself. And I want to know that when I go to work, I'm doing something bigger than myself and I'm helping other people. And that's something that I got out of St. Jude. And it was something that was really special and important to me as I took a career change. And so the healthcare field within Edelman has been a gift because it allows me to do that in a very different way, but it definitely is much more of a rewarding job. I gave a little bit of a healthcare overview, but it's really interesting. I think when people think about Edelman, they think of some of our bigger brands that we represent. They don't necessarily think of the healthcare component. And I know as I was even starting to look at Edelman, I didn't even know they had a healthcare component. I was looking at companies like W2O or ones that are centered around healthcare. And so it was really cool in that there are so many different components within Edelman that you can, if you're not interested in health, we also have a brand side. We also have a culinary side or political side, which is really awesome. And I think it's something that I love about it is, I'm working with my client, but say they need help on something political, we can bring in our political team from DC to help us and give their input, which I think is really great. So we use a lot of data insight to help navigate our pharma industry clients. I think sometimes when you work with pharma clients or healthcare clients, it draws a fine line. There's sometimes really tough ways, and I think it's a more challenging PR field in that sometimes pharma companies aren't always trusted, or there is some bad PR about them. And so it's our job every day to really make sure that we're navigating what the media looks like for the day. And making sure that we set up our clients to look truthful and honest, and making sure that they're a brand that people want to represent and use their drugs as they come out. One other great thing about Edelman, why isn't it working, is that we have health offices all over the world. I know Alyssa was actually talking about that in the beginning, and I think this is really interesting because I work on Eli Lilly and Company as my client. And so I work on their immunology team, working on executive visibility, taking some of their drugs through FDA approvals, medical meetings, things like that. But then I also work with them on a COVID antibody drug. So it's a monoclonal antibody. It's an infusion for patients who are 65 or older, immunocompromised, that do get COVID-19 and are at risk of hospitalization or even death. We're able to give them, within 10 days of their diagnosis, we're able to give them this antibody treatment, and their symptoms will go away, and it prevents them from going into the hospital. It's also made very famous by some various political people as well, as they were getting it when they were getting COVID-19. So what's been really cool to work on with Lilly is that we also work with the London office, the Brussels office, and the Amsterdam office as well. So we have people sitting all over the world helping us, and Lilly is a global client, which is really cool that we kind of get to see what's happening all over the world, but also healthcare in the US is completely different than it is in the EU. And so it's really great to navigate how that works and how we can get not only our COVID drug, but also our various rheumatoid arthritis drugs or alopecia drugs, things like that. How do we navigate people asking for that in the EU, where it's really up to your doctor? It's not like the US where you can go and say, hey, I want to be treated on this medication. So it's been really cool to kind of get to work with people from all over the world. And Edelman does offer you the opportunity to transfer to the other offices. Once you become an account supervisor, you do have the opportunity to begin. So I'm already working. That's something that I'm interested in doing. So as a senior account executive, I'm working on global accounts so that I can understand the business, understand the healthcare systems, in hopes that as I move up to the next level, I can actually transfer to a different office overseas, and they'll help sponsor your visa, things like that, and navigate you getting overseas. But I think that's a really great opportunity, and not one that every company does offer. I think, yeah, I know everybody talked about that, or Alyssa was talking a little bit about culture as well. And one thing I really love about Edelman is we do also have those resource groups. So we have, based on what you're interested in, you can either join as an ally, or you can join as a member of the LGBTQ community or people of color, if you were a military veteran. And what I think is really special about some of those, I'm actually on a couple of the advocacy, or in the advocacy groups, but they have, every month we have different happy hours or different ways that you can learn. So for Hispanic Heritage Month, they did a bunch of sessions that were sent out to the entire health team and the entire Edelman team to really teach you about the Hispanic heritage, or for instance, when Gay Pride came to Chicago, they had different various LGBTQ speakers that would talk a little bit about just LGBTQ rights and really educating yourself, which I think is really special, and something that I love a company that stands up for its employees, but also gives them resources to help feel comfortable in their company. One really great thing is World Mental Health Awareness Day is Friday, actually. And so our CEO gave us the day off to hopefully recharge and relax. And I think that just kind of shows, yes, you can give your people a day off, and that's great. But our CEO actually sent out an email really talking about how it's not just about a day off, but really making sure that their employees feel mattered, and that we feel we can take a time off to recharge, because we do have very serious clients that, you know, it's not a 9-to-5 job, and anyone in PR will tell you that. So it's great to have a CEO who is also a woman, a CEO of Edelman, who really cares about her people. So I can give you a little bit of my life at Edelman. So I do work on Eli Lilly and Company. I predominantly work on the immunology business. So we are working on a drug that's going through a couple trials for atopic dermatitis and alopecia and lupus. So we work in autoimmune diseases that really don't have FDA approved treatments. So alopecia, if you guys are aware, it's actually a autoimmune disease where you lose your hair, including your eyebrows and your eyelashes, and there's no FDA approved treatment for it. So not only is there a physical effect, but also we see a lot of patients that have psychological effects and distress because of hair loss. And some people can lose 50% up to 100% of their hair. And it's something that a lot of people don't know about. So one of the roles that I have working with executive visibility is one of my leaders that works on our drug baricitinib, which is being trialed for alopecia. We have her, what I do is select a bunch of various events that educate different audiences. So because a lot of people don't really understand alopecia, or they think it's a cosmetic condition, meaning they can just wear a wig and it's no problem, or they'll put makeup on and, you know, fake their eyebrows, but it's more than a cosmetic condition. It's autoimmune and it can be treated. So what I do is set out my exec to the National Alopecia Areata Foundation to go speak and teach different patients, but also their allies and these resource groups, how they can talk about alopecia and help the general audience understand, but then also policymakers and payers. So once the FDA approves a treatment for them, how do we get these patients access? And so I think there's so much that goes into a drug being approved than just one press release. It's more about how do we get different audiences to understand and realize that this is a problem, and that we need to put resources into it to ensure that once we get this medicine, our patients can get it. And so that's something that we do day to day, is how do we navigate those audiences. We're working on a drug that is on track to be FDA approved for atopic dermatitis. And so that's something that we're working with regulatory and their legal team to get press releases done, sponsored content. So we'll have people that are, we'll interview patients or their doctors and have them, we'll do like a sponsored content piece about it. So once it's approved, people understand and learn about our drug and who it's helped. And so I know that you guys sent an email ahead of time talking about a successful campaign. So one thing that we actually did, early on into the COVID antibody, I think everybody was really focused on vaccines. So no one really knew that antibodies existed or that it was something that could truly help people that were at risk. So we partnered with groups that were mostly targeting 65 and older, whether that be their kids who are helping them get healthcare treatment, or various people of color, like groups for people of color who are more affected by COVID-19. And so what we did was really put out a ton of various resources and advertising around what monoclonal antibodies really are, because the problem with antibodies is you have to get it within 10 days of your diagnosis, or 10 days within symptoms, which a lot of people, you know, wouldn't go get tested, or they wouldn't think about it until the end, or until it gets too bad and you're in the hospital and then they no longer work. So that was something we did, is really driving awareness around and partnering with various groups around the US to really get the word out. And we saw an uptick in antibodies, and now actually antibodies have become, the sentiment has kind of changed. So now, because people aren't getting vaccinated and you see higher numbers in the South, we are now working to help people understand that antibodies aren't a treatment, they're not a vaccine, and they're meant to be a second option if something bad happens, not I'm not going to get vaccinated, but now I have COVID-19 and I realized I messed up, so now I have to get this. It is not being mass produced the same way a vaccine is, things like that. So we're really trying to change the narrative and working through that right now. So that's one of our challenges right now. Another is one of our drugs that's being trialed for, and hopefully getting FDA approval for atopic dermatitis. It's in the JAK class, so it's a JAK inhibitor, which has some safety regulations that comes with it, which every drug does, but this one affects some more immunocompromised people differently. So we actually were supposed to get approval in April, and we were essentially paused, and the FDA kind of gave us some more safety warnings, and we had to take a pause and step back. And so something I really love about Lilly is that they always want to be transparent, because people don't always trust the pharma world. And so one thing that we really focused on is getting a statement out immediately. What does our standby statement look like? Really, pressing on, yes, we're confident in the safety, but also we're going to be transparent and tell you that there is an issue with the JAK class across 3 different companies that are put a bid in for the FDA approval. So that's something we're kind of navigating right now. Obviously, when there is a drug going to get approval and then gets paused or gets some kind of safety regulation, the media kind of blows up around it. So you just are constantly navigating what that looks like. That is most of what I do day to day. I've absolutely loved joining Edelman. I think I've absolutely loved St. Jude, but it's really been a challenge every day, which is nice. And I continue to learn And if you love healthcare and you like to nerd out and learn about FDA approvals or drugs, it's a great way to be in the know and understand, especially the COVID space right now, but just drugs in general and how they work and what their labels look like and why they look like that. It gives me a lot of courage and confidence in the pharma world and the medical industry in general. And I love what I do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. And now we will be moving on to our Q&A section. So if you have a question for any of our speakers specifically, you can DM Holly or me in the chat. But if not, we can just go through the questions that we prepared in advance. So some of you have already addressed this in your presentation. So if you haven't, feel free to chime in. And if not, like if you feel you already answered it, that's fine too. But how has your work changed since the pandemic began? And what changes do you see lasting beyond the pandemic?
So the first one, I actually started in November. So I started in the pandemic, so I can't really answer the first part, but I will say the second part. I think just in general working remote, we've learned we can do. And I think this goes to show for every company, but Edelman itself is moving. We're actually moving offices in December. And they actually purchased an office that doesn't fit the whole company because they understood that people can work remote and it's great for culture. But I think we also understood, especially for executive visibility, I don't need to be flying to Indianapolis to go train one of my Lilly leaders. I can do it over a computer. And I actually can be more accessible to them because I can do a quick 1 hour session with them whenever they'd like, rather than having to hop on a flight. So I think we'll be more efficient and hopefully more effective in that way because we're better because of it. And I think also transparency will help as well. I think there's been a lot of misinformation around COVID, and for healthcare PR, we've had to learn how to navigate that and what that looks like and how do you change the narrative. And I think it's taught us a lot, and it's taught pharma companies a lot, and it's really opened their eyes into how honest that they have to be as a company. And so that's what I would say.
Chiming, so literally everything Jamie just said, same. And I think chiming on top and kind of going back to what Julie was saying earlier about how if you're not a COVID treatment, drug, COVID related, I think it's really because it's dominated the news cycle so hard. We've really had to take into account like tracking on not even like I work in oncology, like we're always tracking on oncology related news. Now we've had to track on COVID too. So for example, we were getting ready for an announcement and we're putting it on the same day that we found out then Pfizer was supposed to share its news about its full approval. So we knew, like we had to like always like email the clients right away when we saw that was going to happen and say, we're not putting an announcement out this day because it will literally get no coverage because everyone's going to be focusing on that. So I think just really having to strategize, not related to like your disease state or what you're working on, and always taking into account what's happening in the COVID world is something we had to learn and really pivot with.
Yeah, I would just add too, I think that sort of the hierarchy within organizations and senior leaders has changed, and everyone used to have a different size office and a different protocol. And I think the workplace has become more authentic. And I think some of this environment, some of that kind of hierarchy of setting up meetings and being all formal, I've seen, CEOs of companies in a hat on a conference call, which has been just really eye-opening. And I just think it's kind of taken some of that office culture and tradition away and made people more real. So it's been interesting.
Definitely. And with that, how have your clients adjusted to like new consumer needs since the pandemic emerged?
Alyssa, do you want to? I'm trying to think. That's actually like a very great question.
It is, and I think it's, at least for me, and I'm sure for Jamie too. So what we work pretty much exclusively towards physicians rather than like consumers or patients, mostly because like the drugs that I work on are for patients that are usually older, so they're usually in their 70s or 80s. So like they're not on Instagram really, or like Facebook or stuff like that. But I think, and someone touched on this earlier, I think just transparency, I think is so key because of the misinformation. I think being extra clear about what you want to say and understanding that a lot of things can be misinterpreted. It can end up on Facebook and people believe it. Just like really working on your messaging even more than before and taking that extra moment to make sure that it's clear and that it's targeted towards the right people, which you didn't really have to necessarily worry about when not everyone thought they were a doctor after the pandemic. So that is my very blunt answer.
Oh my gosh, yes. I echo what Alyssa says. I think the narrative unfortunately has changed in the healthcare world. Everybody does think they're a doctor, and unfortunately, you have to be very careful about that. I also will say our media team is absolutely incredible, and not only do they have great rapport with these reporters, but you have to be very careful about what you pitch to each reporter. What do they write about? How do they write about Lily? How do they write about, a certain topic? And you have to be very careful about that because, if we know we are press releasing on bad data or putting out a statement in bad data, the first couple outlets that we're looking for are the ones that typically are saying bad things about Lily or have an undertone that's predominantly negative. And so we have to kind of navigate what that looks like, but also make sure that, unfortunately trials fail, unfortunately drugs fail. And, there's been many that people probably don't even know about, but I think because COVID has really made everybody a doctor, now people are getting more involved on our AD trials. We were going for FDA approval and then all of a sudden we're paused and the FDA is investigating and now everyone thinks it's a terrible drug. Well, that's actually not true, but that's kind of what the sentiment on Twitter becomes, things like that. But what they don't understand is this actually happens a lot. And it's great that the FDA is doing it because they're taking the extra safety step and Lily's, working with them to make sure that our patients are safe. So really just changing the narrative constantly is a big role we play, I think.
Yeah, I would also just add that because of the news cycle, we've used social media for a number of my smaller clients more than ever before, because that's been an alternative way to get information out versus just regular earned media placements.
I had a quick question following up to that. So I know for COVID, you're probably maybe more educating the general public, but with the other drugs that you work on, are you mostly educating the physicians or are you still educating the consumers of the medications, they know what they're taking?
It's a little bit of both. Physicians, yes, because you want them to prescribe to your patients, but also patients because we're lucky in the US that, based on your insurance, you can kind of plant your own course. So we want you to understand and know what Olumiant is, which is our rheumatoid arthritis drug. We want you to know the effects it has and all of these success stories. So we're targeting both really. But I will say outside of the US, it's very different, right? Because we're only targeting physicians, we're only targeting payers and policymakers to make sure this is affordable and it's the most affordable. So the doctor's going to prescribe it. So it looks a little different based on where you are, but I would say in the US, we're kind of targeting both to make sure that they are going physically to their doctor and letting them know, but we also want doctors to know that we're on the market.
I would say the same too. And I think health literacy is always something that is a challenge and sort of what we all deal with. I'm sure Jamie and Alyssa and I have all sat in a room with a bunch of lawyers and regulatory reviewers who are not speaking in English. They're talking at a level that is just way above anyone's head. And so in a way, I almost feel like our job is translating the science in terms of making it more in layman's terms so the general public can understand it. So that's been a challenge because we are so highly regulated. We definitely spend a lot of time wordsmithing in terms of explaining certain terms.
I think so what's kind of interesting about our take on that on Takeda Oncology. So Takeda focuses a lot on some more rare cancers and just patients that really don't have a lot of options available to them. So part of, outside of just the drugs itself, it's a lot of our work is with disease awareness. And, I didn't hear about most of the cancers that I work with now prior to my role on like working on the drugs. So I can't imagine being a patient and being told you have myelodysplastic syndromes. And you're like, I've never even heard of that. I had no idea. So whether it's, to raise awareness to patients on the symptoms they may be feeling that they should go get screened, or the physicians that may not be as familiar with these rare cancers, that this could be a possibility too, or that we have drugs for these cancers that not that many people have, but patients still deserve those therapies and those options too. So I think that's been a really interesting kind of take on what we're targeting and how we're targeting them individually.
All right, and I have a question from the audience for all of you. Well, actually 3 questions. Firstly, how did you find your jobs? Secondly, what do your companies look for in a resume, and how can students like us make ourselves stand out? And are there any internship opportunities that we should be aware of?
I can go. Okay, first one, how did I find my job? So I actually was, when I was wanting to leave St. Jude, I was looking for PR, but I wanted specifically health. So I was really only looking at PR agencies that had a healthcare portion to it. But I would say how I found it was I actually looked on LinkedIn and found anybody that I knew within each company. I actually talked to Alyssa. I messaged her before this because I was really interested in W2O. And I was like, I don't know anyone there, but hey, I saw you posted this on DePaul's LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you. So the first thing I did was make every connection I possibly could, even if it's a loose connection. We both went to DePaul and she was so great. She talked to me for like 30 minutes about the company. And it's nice to have those conversations because I can give you like a really good insight of what Edelman is like, what the culture is like, what my day-to-day is like. And it's really good to know what you want out of a company. So as you're having these conversations, you can better understand where you see yourself fit. I think resume wise, I think a cover letter is really great. And I know some people say like, oh, cover letters are dying, but everybody's resume is great this year, or great now, right? There's services you can get, and there's so many different ways. Everyone's resume always looks the same. And so I think really making sure that your cover letter is great and it makes you stand out in a way. Everyone knows you're a good writer, but what is that about you that would make you a really great fit on the team? And that's something I always say to put, but also try to find a connection within the company, even if it's a loose one. If there's someone I'm connected to on LinkedIn that you want me to connect you to, I'm happy to do it. But I think that makes that going the extra mile is what's going to get you there.
I'll go. How I found my job here. So I started out of college at another agency called Togo Run, which was based in the East Coast. So I graduated from DePaul. I'm from Chicago, but I took the leap and moved out for a post-grad internship with them and ended up getting hired on. They were healthcare, but more consumer focused, more health and wellness kind of. And so afterwards, I kind of decided I want to move back to Chicago, and they didn't have a Chicago office. So similar to Jamie, I knew I wanted a healthcare setting because I loved the healthcare experience I had at Togo Run. And recruiters, again, I love recruiters, honestly, they are always in your inbox, but that's how I knew that W2O was a big healthcare agency. And so I had reached out, looked in my LinkedIn DMs and was who's reached out to me before, because kind of already having that connection was really helpful. So I was like, well, you were interested in me before, now I have more experience, so let's talk. And so I knew the Chicago office. They were like, this is great, we have a spot on an oncology account. And I was like, cool. I actually don't do this. I lied and said I had an oncology experience because I really wanted to work there. Don't do that, because I was expected to have oncology experience, and I got on the team and they were like, this girl doesn't know anything about this. So would not advise against that. But on your resume, be honest. But also, I think honestly, where you go to school and your experience is your college experience is great, but it really, really is important to highlight any internships you have, anything you've learned in real world experience, because that is what like W2O, Total Run, that was so important to everybody, was what experience do they have outside of just you went to college, which I think was really helpful. And making yourself stand out, completely agree with Jamie. Just reach out to anybody on LinkedIn. Like she did it to me. I know Jennifer did it to me too. Like I love that. People love talking about themselves, love talking about their jobs. So like you will very rarely get someone that is like, no, I don't want to talk to you. So make those connections and get your names in the door, because most companies too have referral programs. And it'll always get you a leg up when you go to interview for an internship or a postgraduate job.
And I'll just finish off to say, when I was looking for a job, there wasn't LinkedIn. And so I mailed a hard copy of my resume to Melissa Brooks, who is the VP of Corporate Communications, and got the job that way. So finding unique ways to stand out. I would also say networking throughout your career, how I get clients. Many times I work for a lot of my former bosses at Abbott, at BMS and Pfizer and Takeda. So it's a small world, especially in healthcare. Like Alyssa was my student. I know a lot of people at Edelman that Jamie's team is on. And so we're all very connected. And so I just think it's important to always keep that open and never burn any bridges, because it just, from a career longevity, it doesn't matter if you might work for them at a company or at an agency. And I think, people move jobs a lot. So it's important to always keep in touch.
Well, thank you all so much today for joining us. Alyssa, Jamie, Julie, you guys were amazing. If you all want to do like little clapping hands emoji, I think that'd be great. But thank you for joining us. It was so great. So I just want to share a couple of closing remarks before we leave. So just a reminder that we have a YouTube channel. If you joined late or want to watch our other meetings, we record them all and post them on there. And then you can follow us on the social media sites that are working, and visit us on our website to find out all the information about dues, membership, all that. And that's it. Thank you all so much for joining us. And we hope to see you in a couple weeks about travel and tourism PR.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
If you guys have a minute,
Thank
with
you.
everything
It's very
going on with everything going on with Facebook and Instagram, go take a look at Twitter's actual Twitter, because they're tweeting and making fun of Facebook and Instagram going down, and it's a great way to end.
It's pretty great.
It's really funny to end your day.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much.